Hello and good evening students, and welcome back to Global Online Platform. This is Chandni Swarnikar and today we are going to cover ANN RADCLIFFE. Okay, so and she is very famous, let me tell you. Now you can get my lecture at 6 PM on a daily basis. वीडियो में आगे बढ़ने से पहले मैं आपको बता देती हूँ, जून 2024 में JRF लेने के लिए स्मार्ट प्रिपरेशन करने की जरूरत है। उसके लिए ग्लोबल ऑनलाइन आपके लिए लेकर आए हैं इंग्लिश लिटरेचर का कंप्लीट कोर्स, जिसमें आपको फुल सिलेबस वीडियो लेक्चर्स मिलेंगे, जिसमें शॉर्ट एंड स्मार्ट ट्रिक के साथ आपके सारे कॉन्सेप्ट क्लियर हो जाएंगे। इसके साथ ही आपको फुल सिलेबस नोट्स PDF फॉर्मेट में अवेल कराया जाएगा, जिसे आप अपने मोबाइल लैपटॉप डाउनलोड करके इजीली पढ़ सकते हो। उसके साथ ही आपको फुल सिलेबस मॉक टेस्ट मिलेंगे, जिससे एज इट इज क्वेश्चन एग्जाम में पूछे जाते हैं। मॉक टेस्ट आपके फाइनल प्रिपरेशन में बहुत हेल्प करता है। तो गिवन कॉन्टैक्ट नंबर पर कॉन्टैक्ट करके आप इसे ज्वाइन कर सकते हो। और सबसे अच्छी बात इस कोर्स की है दैट यू आर गोइंग टू गेट कंप्लीट पेपर 1 कोर्स फॉर फ्री। ओके, सो कीप दिस इन माइंड। नाउ फ्री वीडियोस के एक्सेस के लिए आप ग्लोबल ऑनलाइन पेड कोर्स को ज्वाइन कर सकते हो। ऑफ कोर्स नाउ ग्लोबल ऑनलाइन बेसिकली ऐप को आप डाउनलोड कर सकते हो। स्टोर सेक्शन पे जाओगे, आपको सारे कोर्सेज की जानकारी यहाँ से मिल जाएगी। कोर्स का नाम लिखोगे तो कोर्स का ओवरव्यू आपके सामने आ जाएगा। इसकी ड्यूरेशन, इसकी फीस, हर चीज़ जो है आपको मिल जाएगी। उसके साथ ही अगर आप कंटेंट सेक्शन पे क्लिक करते हो तो यूनिट वाइज जो है फोल्डर्स आपको अवेलेबल मिलेंगे। हर एक यूनिट में थ्योरी लेक्चर्स, इवैल्यूएशन, नोट्स, मॉक टेस्ट आपको मिलेंगे। इसके अलावा आपको कुछ भी पढ़ने की ज़रूरत नहीं है। उसके साथ ही अगर आप ग्लोबल ऑनलाइन पेड कोर्स को ज्वाइन करते हो तो आपको व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में भी ऐड किया जाएगा, जहाँ पे हर एक सेशन की PDF आप लोगों के साथ में प्रोवाइड करवाई जाएगी। ओके, सो इफ़ यू आर इंटरेस्टेड you can anytime join. Now let's start with ANN RADCLIFFE. So let's cover ANN RADCLIFFE. Okay, so I must tell you that she is very famous for the Mysteries of Udolpho. It's a very famous work, and if you'll read it, I'll be glad that you have read it. Okay, so make sure if you have time you can read that out. Okay, now let's talk about ANN RADCLIFFE in detail. Okay, so she was born in 1764 and died in 1823. She's very famous or special about, like, she has a special quality to add logic to her mysterious events in her stories. Okay, she made spooky stories popular by explaining mysterious events logically. Okay, and she also earned some of the titles and are very famous. Just imagine somebody told you that you are Shakespeare, you write like Shakespeare. How will you feel? You'll be amazed, right? So she actually earned the title the Shakespeare of romance writers. So just imagine that somebody got it. I hope she got it when she was alive. Now the second one is the Mighty Enchantress. I was focusing on this first because there is a mention of Shakespeare, of course. Okay, so now even in the 19th century you can see that people loved her stories. Okay, and one of her famous writer, Jane Austen herself, said something about ANN RADCLIFFE and her writing skill, So it's like this: I have read all Mrs. Radcliffe's works, and most of them with great pleasure. The Mysteries of Udolpho, when I had once begun it, I could not lay down again. I remember finishing it in 2 days, my hair standing on end the whole time. Okay, so that kind of work it is. Okay, some writer, very famous writer, saying something like that, you can even imagine the importance of a particular work. Okay, so let's start with other works. We'll go further and then we'll cover also the Mysteries of Udolpho. Let's focus on the first work first. Okay, so the Castles of Etheline and Dunbayne. It's basically about two castles, particularly Etheline and Dunbayne. It was published in London in 1789, and also there is a person who actually said something about this particular work, that is Alison Milbank, actually who introduced a letter edition. Okay, and the story mixes Scottish medieval. He actually saying this, Alison Milbank. The story mixes Scottish medieval adventures with the feelings and morals popular in the 18th century. So basically, he's saying that it's a story that mixes Scottish medieval adventures with the feelings and morals which was actually popular in the 18th century. So that there is a mixture of it. Okay, both the elements are mixed together by Of course, Anne Radcliffe, according to Alison Milbank. Okay. Now, essentially, it combines old Scottish tales with the emotion values of Radcliffe's time. So, just imagine there is a old work and you are adding your own values to it. So, that is exactly Anne Radcliffe is doing. Okay, was actually doing that. Now, the Castle of Athleen and Dunbenny has also another name. Highland Tale, do remember this, and takes place in Scotland, of course, because it actually story mixes Scottish medieval, so setting is Scotland. Now the story revolves around two castles, as I have already mentioned this in the first slide, in the first sentence. Now let me tell you, it's a story about two family, you can say. The Athleen is a castle where actually Matilda and her family live. Okay, so it's a place, it's not a place, kind of it's a castle which is associated or situated on a rocky peak touching the sea, as it mentioned here, is where the kind Countess Matilda and her family live. So there is a mention of kind Countess. Okay, so do remember. Now meanwhile, Dunbenny is ruled by the wigged Baron Malcolm. So there is a wigged and kind, the contradictory characters all together. Okay, so this is it. If you are interested to read the story, you can read it out, but I would suggest that don't go very deep with this. Okay, now the second work is A Sicilian Romance. It's a Gothic novel, as she is very famous for her Gothic novels. Second published work, and it was actually published anonymously. There was no mention of the writer, and it was actually published in 1790. So the story is about the Mazzini family in Sicily, told to a tourist by a monk. Okay, so it's a kind of a story about the Mazzini family, and it's been a it's like a person who is a monk who is telling the story, okay, to a tourist. Okay, that is the plot line, you can imagine. Now you can also read the whole story, like there is a kind of a love story you can see here between two characters, and you're also going to see some of the problems in their lives, but eventually they meet at the end. Okay, so that is the whole plot line, but as I have mentioned here, you can read it out. I am not going to tell you the whole thing. Okay, so it's very easy for you to read the lines throughout here till here. Okay, now let's cover the third work, The Romance of the Forest. The Romance of the Forest, which was actually 1719's work, 91 work. Okay, it's about mystery, suspense, and themes of good versus bad behavior, as we have already talked about it. This book basically made Radcliffe famous, very famous. Okay, it was so popular that it got printed 4 times in the first 3 years. 4 times. Okay, so something you must have missed it, but there is a mention of The Romance of the Forest, so that you need to remember this work. Okay, now let's cover the very famous and very interesting work, The Mysteries of Udolpho, 1794. Let me tell you, it's about a girl, Emily St. Aubert, a girl and who has a lot of problems, like her parents dying and facing scary stuff in a creepy castle. So whenever I read this work, I actually feel like remembering Sushant Singh Rajput. There is a movie with Kriti Sanon. I think I have mentioned it twice or thrice, right, in the video lectures. I don't know, but yes. So it reminds me of that movie. But you can see, you can read the story. There will be a villain. Then Emily is going to face a lot of trouble. Then there is a well-encoded character, okay, the love interest of Emily. So you're going to see a lot of happenings. Okay, so there is also a bad guy named Signor Montoni. So in that movie also you're going to see a bad character who causes trouble. People often say it's a typical Gothic story. Of course, it's a typical Gothic story. You are going to see the events, the scenarios, the supernatural elements are like very horrific scenes are there. So you are going to see that. Okay, you will feel it. Now about this story, I'm going to read the summary. I'm going to tell you everything, like as much as you need, okay? So it's a kind of a classic gothic romance story filled with airy events like spooky castles, mysterious happenings, and a sinister villain. So what do you need a story to be a gothic story? Of course, a villain, of course, sinister is a very good word, okay? So mysterious events, of course, happenings, spooky castles. You need to for a work to be gothic. Okay. So now the main character, what is happening? The main character, Emily St. Aubert, is a young French woman. Okay, so who becomes an orphan after her father's death, and she actually went to her aunt, Madame Chiron, as it mentioned here, who marries a questionable man named Montoni. So there is a character, like, do remember the character's name. Now, even after being married to her aunt, Montoni wanted to marry Emily. Okay, so now Montoni wants Emily to marry his friend Count Morano. Okay, here, but Emily is in love with someone else. Of course, Valancourt is there. Now Montoni, of course, the villainous character, is creating troubles. Now, how he actually creates trouble? By kidnapping Emily and her aunt, and takes them to her to his basically castle, Udolpho. So the castle's name is Udolpho. The mysteries of Udolpho, that is that where scary things start to happen. Emily's aunt dies. Now the story progresses and our character dies, and Emily manages to escape with the help of a secret admirer and some servants. She finds out Valancourt has lost his money, but they reunite in the end. So this is a very short one, but if you'll read it, you'll definitely going to enjoy. It's a very good one. Okay, so throughout the work, throughout the scenes, you'll feel imagery. You'll feel what is going to happen. That kind of feeling you will get. Okay, so this is the whole story, not a whole story, but a sum up of it. Okay, so do remember the characters involved in that story. Now the fifth work is A Journey Made in the Summer of 1794. A Journey Made in the Summers of 1794. Now it has a full title as well. So the full title is A Journey Made in the Summer of 1794 through Holland and the western frontier of Germany, with a return down the Rhine, to which are added observations during a tour to the lakes of Lancashire, Westmoreland and Cumberland. It's like Cumberland. Okay, so it's a full title. A Journey Made in the Summer of 1794 through Holland and the western frontier of Germany, with a return down to Rhine, to which are added observations during a tour to the lakes of Lancashire, Westmoreland and Cumberland. Okay, so it's a full title. It is a kind of a travel narrative, so you are going to see a lot of scenes. Things like somebody is traveling. Now it was first published in somewhere 1795. See here, published by George Robinson. So Mysteries of Udolpho was also published by George Robinson, and the same publisher published it. Now the publisher may be somebody else, it could be, but yes, the same person published both the works. Now it is set in Southern European. Okay, so it was set in Southern European. Now let's cover, that is it. You need to remember, just remember that there is a work and there is a full title of it, and it's a kind of a, it comes under travel narrative, and it was published in that, like 1795, okay. Now the sixth work is the Italian, or the Confessional of the Black Penitents, okay. So it was published in 1796, and somewhere when French Revolution happened. Okay, so the novel is set during the French Revolution. It's in this work, basically, Radcliffe uses a lot of hidden messages. Okay, so it is a kind of a very interesting work. Just imagine somebody wrote it. Somebody wrote a letter, but she hides something in it. So you'll feel, okay, this is something which can amaze people, right? So this kind of story it is. So it talks about topics like religion, rich people, and nationality. Now Radcliffe, the author, uses hidden messages a lot in the book. The way she hides things is seen as really smart in the Italian. Okay, so maybe she is using Italian words or something like that. Now hiding and pretending to be someone else are big ideas in the story. So why I feel like this work is talking about today's generation, not today's generation, like everybody nowadays. Okay, hiding secrets, things like that, and pretending to be someone else by getting inspired by something or someone. So we just pretend to be someone, something like that. Okay, so I hope you are getting my point. Now let me cover the last work of ANN RADCLIFFE. I don't need to go very deep with these works, okay? So as I've told you, the mysteries of Udolpho is important, so go very deep with that. Read the story, read the summary, the whole full length summary. Okay, now the 7th work is Gaston de Blondeville. Okay, it is sounding like a hairstyle. No, blunt. It's a Gothic novel. Okay, it was published in 1826, but it was published posthumously. And the full title, do remember, Gaston de Blondeville, or, the court of Henry III, keeping festival in Eden, a romance. Okay, so this is the full title. Do remember this much information. So, with this, I can conclude the whole lecture, I guess. Okay. A Sicilian Romance, you can read the story if you are interested, and The Castle of Ethelene Dunbar, you can also read the story, but I would suggest go with the Mysteries of Udolpho only. Okay, now thank you so much. We'll meet in the next lecture. All the very best.